Year 9, today you're going to do your damper pizza. Now, because this topic is all about fusion of cultures and multiculturalism, we're using a damper recipe, which is a typical Australian food, and we're going to put an Italian spin on it plus a bush tucker spin on it. So you're turning three kind of cultures into one dish. So using your recipe that you've got on Teams, you are going to put in a bowl 2/3 of a cup of plain flour. So 1, 2. In that plain flour, then you are going to add some baking powder, which is 1/2 teaspoon. Using proper teaspoons if you have them. Put that in. You are going to add 1/4 teaspoon of salt. Now you can use molten salt, you can use kitchen salt, table salt, whichever you want. And then you are going to use 1/2 teaspoon, and then a tablespoon of oil. So using your spoons again, using the big one is a tablespoon, and you're going to use some oil. Putting that in. And then the lucky last, you're going to add 1/4 cup of milk. So measuring 1/4. Now in this mixture you can incorporate some bush spices. Now if you have them, some things you can add is you've got some pepper berries. If you have wattle seed, you can do wattle seed. You can do bush salt. So I'm just going to add a pinch of this bush salt to mine, but you don't have to if you don't want to. So I don't get my fingers in there. Just going to add a little bit. And this will give a bit of that bush tucker spices into my mix. Alright, so our next thing is to mix all that together. Now we're going to stir it together till it makes a dough. And then you're going to put it on your bench and you are going to knead it until it turns into shape into two nice balls, because you're going to make it into two nice pizzas. If you find your mix is really, really dry, you can add a little bit of more milk or oil, or you can just add a drop of water. But by the time you start mixing it and kneading it, you'll feel it'll come together just when you squeeze it here in your bowl, that it will just incorporate itself. So I can see I've still got crumbs in there. So now I'm going to mix it all together. Make sure you don't leave anything in your bowl. Now, because this is just for you at home, you can make it one ball, but if you're going to share it with someone, they turn into 2 individual little pizzas. So you can make it 2 small ones. So you're only kneading it until everything's incorporated, because it's a damper recipe. It's not a traditional pizza dough recipe. It doesn't have the yeast in it that we don't need to work. We don't need to work the gluten because it's got the baking powder in it, which will help it rise. Okay, so all that mess that was on my bench is all going to be incorporated. If yours is really wet, your mix, because you've added too much flour or too much oil, you might want a little bit of flour on your bench. So now what you have to do, you've shaped it into a ball. You can shape it into 2. Then you're going to put it back into your bowl, and you're going to cling wrap it and leave that for 10 minutes. Alright, so you've cling wrapped your dough and you're going to leave it for 10 minutes. So while you're leaving it for 10 minutes, you can do all your pizza topping prep. Now you can make this all a vegetarian and just have mushrooms and tomatoes and whatever you want on it, or you can have some ham and some cheese and your mushrooms. You can incorporate your bush spices on top of your tomato. The first thing I need to do is line my baking tray. Now you're going to grab your baking paper. You can lay it over the top and kind of gauge how big you need it, and then slide along and cut it with the little cutter on the side. Try not to have it hanging over the edge, that way you know you're not going to catch on fire or anything like that. So if you're doing two small ones, you'll fit it nicely on that. Alright, so I'm going to need some cheese for this. Now your recipe only needs half a cup, so if you've already got grated cheese, you can just use half a cup, which is 125 grams. I don't have grated cheese, so I'm going to grate it myself on our block cheese. So using the grater, this part, the larger piece, I'm going to grate my cheese onto my chopping board. You can do it straight into a bowl. I'm just going to have everything on my chopping board ready to go for when I want my pizza. Now depending how cheesy you want it, that might be enough for you. So you can maybe stop there, and then if you feel like you need more, maybe grate it over the top after. That way you don't have too much sitting there getting wasted. Another thing I have is some mushrooms. And I think 1 or 2 will be enough. So you can thinly slice it. If you don't like mushrooms, obviously don't add mushrooms. I'm a big fan of mushrooms. If you prefer things like pepperoni and you have it, use it. Now you can see when I'm cutting and curling my fingers, my knife isn't getting lifted very high, and I'm cutting away from myself. Right, also I've got a bit of ham that I can incorporate. Might only need 1 or 2 pieces. At school, yes, I would change onto a different coloured board that it's meat, but I'm not at school and I don't have multiple coloured boards. So I'm just slicing it, and then I'm going to dice it. So it's all sliced. So there's that. Right. Once my 10 minutes is up, then I'm going to roll it out and put all my toppings on. Alright, so my prep is all done and I'm waiting. So it's been just around 10 minutes. I'm taking it out of my bowl and I'm going to roll my pizza. Now, as I said, you can shape this into 2, and that way 2 people get to eat this, or you can just roll it into 1. Now you are going to roll it out and you are going to cook it for 10 minutes without toppings. Then when it comes out of the oven, you are going to add your toppings and give it another cook for another 10 minutes or until everything's golden and delicious. That way you know the bottom's cooked and the top's not going to be burnt. Now if you find things are sticking, you can add a little bit of flour to your bench or to your rolling pin. But if you can see, every time I've rolled it, I've lifted it and I've turned it the other way. That way I know I'm not going to get stuck to my bench. Because you'll find if you keep rolling it and over the top of it and not lifting it every time, you might get stuck and then you'll have to put it all back together and start again. Now if you didn't have any bush spices that you could incorporate, you could add some oregano to your base or some garlic or any herbs you have in the garden just to give it some colour and flavour, or any dry herbs you have in the pantry. Alright, pizzeria shape, nice big circle. I've done it, 2 to 3 mils. Now I'm going to put it on my tray. Now, as I said, it's going to go in the oven at 200 degrees for under 10 minutes. I'll check it around the 6-minute mark. soon as it's got a bit of colour, I'm going to take it out and then I'll show you what I'm going to do next. Alright, U9, it's been 8 minutes and I'm going to take it out of the oven and then I'll show you. So I don't want to put a hot tray down on my bench, so I'm putting it on a chopping board. I'm going to give it a little flip. Now, I don't want to use my hands, so I'll just use a big pizza flipper. Alright, so now what I'm going to do is add my toppings. So you can add tomato paste here, you can add tinned tomatoes, you can add barbecue sauce. So you're going to add some sauce on the bottom. Remember, your tray is hot, so do not burn yourself. I'm pushing it down, having a tea towel here while I'm resting my hand on it. My hand is not just touching the hot tray. So I'm putting the sauce all around the bottom. Now this is where you can get creative and add what you like. I'm going to add a bit of the bush spice, of the bush tomato. And a new clean spoon. It's quite firm, just to sprinkle on. Kind of feels like a brown sugar, that kind of feeling. Alright, so now you can add your toppings that I prepped before. So your mushrooms, if you wanted mushrooms, maybe one would be enough because I'll have heaps left. Some ham. This way you could add some garlic or chili, whatever you like. You can even add spinach if you need that extra source of iron, which who doesn't love baby spinach? And then your cheese. Now, I didn't end up needing to grate anymore. I think that's enough cheese on there. So this is now my pizza before it goes in. And we'll see it in 10-15 minutes. Alright, the pizza's been in for 15. It's golden. I'm going to take it off my tray and put it on my chopping board. I'm going to let it cool for a couple of minutes before I cut it up. Once I cut it up, I'll take a photo and you'll see the end result. Remember, in between everything, you could be washing up, so you've got nothing to do besides eat once it comes out of the oven. Enjoy, guys.